Podcast family, hope you guys are having a great day. I'm your host, Rocky Roark, and today on the Design Break podcast, we're going to be talking about something that has become very important, especially now with a lot of turbulent things happening in the creative community, as well as with platforms that the creative community has been using for many years now, and that is how to own your own content as a creative professional. So back in April of 2021, I recorded an episode 23 of the podcast, where I basically talk about the unfortunate decline of Dribbble. And more so today, 2 years later, this is becoming more and more of a hot topic. A lot of people are moving away from Dribbble. They're trying to find new solutions to Dribbble and things like that. And so this whole episode is kind of like a rehash of that episode, but also focusing on a list of 5 things or 5 ways that you can take ownership of your content. So let's actually go back to the beginning. In 2013 is when I first got my Dribbble invite. When I attended a Creative South, my friend Lenny Terenzi was able to give me an invite. And back then, Dribbble was invite only. That was the only way that you could get on there to post your work, was by having an invite from somebody. So it was a very exclusive club of creatives of all different backgrounds. And so it was something that was a lot more fun. It was a lot more freeing. Now, there is no guardian at the gate. There's no need for invites. I think at one point I had 10 invites that I was planning on saving up and giving out to people. And they're like, oh no, we don't have invites anymore. They're all gone. Now anybody can join and everything. And, you know, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And just overall, Dribbble has just gone so downhill ever since the founder or co-founder, Dan Cederholm, left, that, you know, creatives have been looking for a whole nother way of showcasing their content. And so one thing to really consider, and this is very scary actually, is that a lot of these platforms could go bye-bye. Like, they could go away. They could all of a sudden close up shop tomorrow, and then all of your content that was on there is gone. You know, their websites go down, they get hacked, something happens, and all of their data gets erased, and all of your content, every visual, every video, every written piece is just gone. And so that's something that really needs to be considered with all of this, especially with declining of these different platforms, but also just the idea of, you know, some of these platforms are so small that they don't have, you know, good security, or they don't have backups on backups and everything. So owning your own content is basically the good news of it. You know, it allows you to take ownership. It allows you to have everything redirected to one place. The bad news with Dribbble is that you have to pay so much money each month or each year. When I started, it was $20 for a year. Now I think it's $20 a month in order to have a pro membership, just so you can have a way for people to message you on the platform, just so you can have like a link or whatever on your profile. It's stupid. It's ridiculous how it's gotten to this point. So taking your ownership, you know, in today's episode, you know, taking your own ownership of your content is the best way forward for any creative out there who is afraid of these things happening. And honestly, every creative should be afraid of these things happening, because it's a very real possibility. There are plenty of platforms out there that could easily be hacked. There are plenty of platforms that, you know, monetize your work for free. They don't get paid. They don't have to pay you in order to monetize your work, and yet they're getting all the benefits. Dribble's a great example of that. They are constantly putting out products. They're constantly selling products on their sales platform, Creative Market, and you don't reap any benefits from that. You don't get anything from that. You know, your work, especially all of you creatives out there who have been on Dribbble for years, all of your work that you have compiled and posted on there religiously, posting and sharing, all of that is just putting more and more money into these platforms' pockets. And what's been going on recently? Everything's been drying up. All of the work has dried up on on Dribbble, and all of the leads that you do get, if you get leads, are so poor quality that it's like, why am I even here? So taking control of your content, owning your own content, is the best way forward. And this whole episode is somewhat scripted. It's not scripted. It's basically me expressing, my thoughts and ideas along this. And so, let's actually just go ahead and dive in. You heard me rant a little bit there, and I'll probably rant some more as I'm going through this. But, here are 5 key, advantages or key ways that you can take advantage of owning your own content today that will benefit you years upon years in the future. So I have 5 keys here, and I'm going to go through each one. I've got the list of them right here, and I'm going to share in depth with you why each of these are important. And for the most part, they're somewhat in order of importance from 1 to 5. Without further ado, let's jump in here. So key number 1, and this is very important, and I have a whole episode on why this is important, I believe, which is having your own website. As a creative professional, no matter what you're doing, whether you are creative, whether you're a designer, illustrator, hand letterer, whether you're doing development or coding or webflow dev, have a website. And this is very important. And I have a couple of friends who are freelancers, and they're very successful. They don't have websites, and it has always bugged me. And the reason why they are successful is because they are in the startup mecca, which is San Francisco. They have a lot of connections, and so they don't necessarily need a website. I believe they just have a landing page, which is fine. Having just a landing page for your website is totally fine as long as you're linking out to specific areas that you showcase your work, your thought process, your ideas, and things like that. This is probably one of the most fundamental ways of owning your own content and images, and have your own domain that points to your work, points to you. There are plenty of domains, dribbble.com/Rocky Roark. Yes, that is a domain name, but that's still dribbble.com versus having rockyroark.com or my current website, which is bluecyclops.co. Having those things in place are way more important than linking out to a Dribbble account or a Behance account or whatever, like Creative Collective or whatever used to be out there, or a DeviantArt account. Talk about blast from your past there. And especially for those of you who are looking for jobs right now, if you were laid off or you're just getting out of design school and looking for a job, putting in a Dribbble link is not going to be nearly as effective as putting in a link that is directly your own. If you can get a link that has your name, I was very lucky. rockyroark.com was mine. I've had it for probably 15 plus years now. I don't use it as my main website. I use bluecyclops.co. But if you're looking for a specific job, I would highly suggest that you use a name-based domain. Right now, you can probably actually find your name.design. You can definitely check that out. That actually would be a perfect URL for a website. But, to start, you really don't have to have a full website. As long as you have a web presence that points to other places, that will work at least for now. But having your website is the first fundamental key of taking control of your content, because it can become a hub for everything that you create, from your work and case studies to blog posts to even your own version of Dribbble. I'm actually working on something like that for my new website that I'm working on. And it's also a great directory for everything. It's an archive of everything that you create. Never delete things off of your website. Save them to a back-end domain or something like that. Save them in the background, because you never know what you'll want to show in the future or what clients will want to see in the future. So definitely hold on to those things. You don't have to necessarily get rid of them. And so that leads into key number 2, which is curating a blog. A lot of people right now think that in 2023, having a blog is not relevant. It is very relevant. It is especially relevant because it allows you to express your ideas. You know, a lot of people don't have YouTube channels. A lot of people don't want to get in front of the camera. And so the best way for them to articulate their expertise is through posting blog content and making that blog content easy to navigate, easy to skim and read and everything like that. There's a lot of stuff that you can write about, from your thought process on specific areas of design, on specific things that you learned while working with clients and things like that. There's a lot of different stuff that you can really figure out and express within your blog. It can even be a place where you can share your in-progress work or ideas that you have for future projects. So curating a blog is very important because it allows you to keep all of these thoughts and ideas in one place that you can go back to, you can reference, you can actually be on a call with a client, and the client's like, you know, I'm trying to figure out how this works and everything. Oh, I actually have a blog post that I wrote about that last year. Here's a link to it. They then can see that you are much more of a thought leader than they once thought. That's funny. But you can kind of see here where I'm getting this. You know, having that blog, you know, driving traffic to it and everything like that, that is very important. And you can still have a Medium or a Blogger. I don't know if there's many people with Blogger accounts anymore, but you can have these platforms where you're posting your blog content. Again, you're running into that same trap where these platforms somewhat own the content. They are the place where everyone's going to it, and you might not necessarily be linking back to your website. What you can do there is include within your blog content that you post on these places links that link out to other articles that you've written on your own personal blog. That way, like, let's say if you're talking about design systems, right? And you reference 2 articles within this specific blog post that go back to another page or 2 other pages on your website, then you're able to kind of drive traffic, more and more traffic to your website versus just driving traffic to Medium. So definitely think about that. Think about ways that you can continuously drive more and more traffic to your sites, and use specific markers too. Use like Bitly to customize the link so you can see where the link is coming from, and you can see, oh wow, people are clicking on this link and going to my personal blog from the Medium post. Just a small little tip there. All right, number 3, and this is, again, a lot of these things that I'm talking about here, they may seem somewhat archaic, but you know what? They work. And so key number 3 is building a mailing list. Just like with a blog, email is still a powerful tool, and unlike followers on social media, you have a direct line of communication with your list. If Twitter goes down, or Twitter decides, oh, I'm going to put a count on how many tweets you can view in a day, stupidest thing I've ever heard. Elon, you're an idiot. Sorry. But, you know, if they decide to do that and you're, you know, locked out of Twitter, or you can't express your message without having the blue check, you know, the best thing to do is to have a secondary source to communicate to those who want to hear more from you, and that is by having a mailing list. Your mailing list is the perfect starting point to promote your content that you're creating, and to even connect with your network and potential clients and collaborators. There's a lot of different people out there who have multiple different mailing lists, or they at least triage their mailing list depending on who the people are, what kind of content they are consuming, what kind of content brought them to their mailing list. And so you could have it set up to where you've triaged people who are fellow designers, your peers and things like that, and then you have people who are potential clients, potential employers and everything. And so you could actually segment your newsletter to once a week you send out a newsletter to your peers, once a week you send out a newsletter to your potential clients or previous clients even. You can have all your clients be a part of a mailing list if they decide that's okay with them. And so having a mailing list is one of the best ways that you not only take control of your content, but you also take control of your communications and your messaging to your followers. And so it's also a great tool that you can then go and reshare your content, your blog posts, your podcasts, your YouTube videos, your work in progress stuff, just to show people what you're working on, see if they might have some questions, and even express availability. That's also something very important. Being able to express your availability for your clients and everything like that is something that's very, very important. So key number 4, create a link hub. Now, your website is the central hub for everything. It should be where all of your content's living and everything like that. But you'll also need to create a hub for all the different links that you share. Now, a perfect example, and the easiest example to express this is a link tree. I didn't want to go ahead and say link tree in the title of this key, but a link tree is probably one of the best ways that you can take control of all the different links and content and things like that. It's something that you can easily use across your different social platforms, though I think Twitter was thinking about banning it, or they have banned it. The best way to go about this is create your own link tree. And you can easily do this if you're using Webflow or Framer. I'm not 100% sure with Framer, but with Webflow, I've created my own link tree, which is basically just a landing page where I have CMS, which is content management system, I believe, set up with individual links and everything. So I'm able to go through and customize. I'm able to put, okay, here's the latest podcast episode. Here's the latest YouTube video. Here's a new article on this here. Here's a link to all of my previous articles on a certain topic or things like that. So you're able to go through and you're able to have this central hub. It's a directory with all of the newest and most relevant pieces of information. And you're going to have a certain cap to how much you can share there. So it's most likely going to be all the most recent information, but it allows you to also link out to all the other bits of social platforms that you use as well. And here's one, key thing here to keep in mind is that I'm not telling you to drop off of these platforms. I'm telling you to take control back from the platforms. So still post on Twitter, still post on LinkedIn, still post on Dribbble, Behance, on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever it is that you're posting work and content, keep doing that. But make sure that you're always linking back to your own personal site, your own business site, so that you can take full control of your content. And so this leads me into key number 5. And so this is basically, kind of a no-brainer here, and it's kind of what we've been alluding to this whole time, which is develop your own brand. Now, if you follow each of the key steps above, then you're basically already doing this. You've already developed your own brand. So developing this is a key step for those of you who truly want to own your own content. You're going to want to have, your own personal brand behind it, and it's all going to kind of come natural if you're following all the other 4 keys above. And so that's basically what I have done myself. I actually have multiple brands under my name. I have my Rocky Roark brand, which I use for YouTube and Instagram. I have my, as well as Twitter as well. I have Blue Cyclops, which is my business brand, and that's used across many different platforms. And then, of course, I have this podcast, The Design Break. This is also another brand that I curate, that I use for my content. All of the brands are under the main umbrella of my personal brand. Everything is funneled through there. Everything that I do, I create, I say is all funneled through there. It is only pretty much me who is out there talking to all of you on these different platforms. I'm actually bringing on a couple of design interns shortly. In fact, by the time you guys see this podcast or listen to this podcast, I will probably already have my interns helping me out with stuff. And I also am promoting my editor to be my content manager in addition to editing. And so more people are going to be touching different pieces of these brands, but it's still all a reflection of me. And it's something that I plan to always be a part of. Even if for some reason I become a huge personality, which I don't really want to do, but I want to make sure that everything that I put out and everything that I do reflects my own personal brand. And so that's what you have to decide as a creative when you develop your own personal brand. What kind of stuff do you want to talk about? What don't you want to talk about? What do you want to showcase? What kind of content do you want to create? Not everybody's going to want to sit in front of a camera or record a podcast episode, and that's fine. It's what your personal brand is and what you're comfortable with doing. For instance, with me, myself, if you notice, I basically never cuss in any of my content. And yet I do cuss outside of my personal brand. When I'm playing Call of Duty with my other designer friends and everything like that, I cuss like a sailor. But during this content, I don't do that because I want to make sure that my content can reach everyone it possibly can, beyond just adults, beyond those people out there who are just getting out of design school and stuff like that. I started off my career in high school. I started learning design when I was 13, 14 years old. That's almost 20 years ago now. And so I know that there are definitely people out there who are wanting to learn design, wanting to learn illustration, wanting to learn how to freelance, who are under that age 18 gap. And so I want to make sure that my content can still reach those people. And so that's the reason why there's no profanity on my podcast. There's no profanity on my YouTube videos. And that is a very, very specific touch point with my brand, is that you're not generally going to see that. It's very rare, I think, that I've ever broken that rule. And so you have to develop these things yourself and figure out what your personal brand is going to be all about. You could be Gary Vee, where he's throwing out, cuss words left and right and everything, and that's perfectly fine. That is his brand. That's his personality. It's not mine and it's not yours. It could be yours. Who knows? So all of these keys, and let's actually just go back and kind of rehash those real quick. Key number 1 was having your own website. Key number 2, curating a blog. Key number 3, building a mailing list. And key number 4, creating a link hub. And number 5, developing your own brand. So those are the 5 keys of how to take control and how to really own your own content. All right, before we end this podcast, I want to give a very special shout out to my friend Design Shark. His name is Dan. I can't remember his last name. My memory is so bad about this, but he gave us an awesome review on Apple Podcasts. And as you may have remembered from a previous episode, I'm trying to include little bits of shout outs to everyone who gives us a review on Apple Podcasts, whether it's a positive or negative review. I'll give you a shout out because you know what? You took the time to give us a nice review, or just a review in general. And so if you would like for me to give you a shout out on a podcast episode or video podcast episode, please definitely head on over to Apple Podcasts. Give us hopefully 5 stars if you like today's episode or previous episodes, and be sure to write us a review, and I will make sure to give one special reviewer a shout out in every single episode, even if it is a 4-year-old review, because there are some 4-year-old reviews in there. But I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in today's episode. If you are listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting platform, please remember to subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a nice review if you like this episode. If you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, please remember to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. If you have any questions, this goes to everybody, please send me a DM on Twitter at Rocky Roark, and I will be sure to answer any and all questions that you have. I'm just so happy that I'm able to create all this new content and share it with all of you guys. And as always, remember to stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative. All right, everybody, that's it for me for this episode. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye.